Hey, what's good? Coach Colin Castell, and today I'm gonna give you 3 shooting tips that you've probably never even heard of. So a tip that can absolutely revolutionize your jump shot is what we call a leg drift. And this is basically just the idea of not needing to tilt your feet at the start of your jump shot, but having them tilted at the end of your jump shot. So this is particularly important if you're shooting off the dribble going towards your dominant hand side. So if I'm a right-handed basketball player and I'm shooting going to my right, a leg drift basically means that I don't have to get my feet tilted, because a lot of us have heard that we need to tilt our feet when we shoot, because it's really hard to get your feet all the way around, especially if maybe there's a defender riding your hip or something like that. So a leg drift is a simple concept that we get our hip on target at the end of our jump shot instead of at the beginning. So as I'm coming and I'm pulling up going to the right, even if I get my chest going this direction, I can still go up into my jump shot and drift my leg towards the basket to get my hips to unlock to let my release come up. You'll notice that a lot of the elite level shooters in the NBA will use this, especially if they're going, in some sort of fadeaway situation. So if they're going to their right, defender's close on their hips, they can still load up into a jump shot here and finish through as they kick their feet forward. So again, the key to a leg drift is not let the leg drift all the way across your body. You want to let your leg drift towards the basket in a straight line. If I let my leg drift all the way over, that's where I'm going to start getting wonky, twisted, and off balance. So think about a leg drift, and especially anytime you're practicing working on going to your dominant hand side. So it might be as easy as let's say in your drill or your workout, you're doing roll dribble pull-ups, right? So maybe on one, we're going this way, I'm getting my feet tilted. My next rep, I'm going this way. Maybe I'm using a slight leg drift to come through. It'll unlock that power in your shoulders, and I promise you it'll help you knock down more shots. So a huge shooting tip that you've probably never heard of is what I call single finger release, meaning that you want one single finger to touch the basketball last, and you want that finger finishing down towards the ground. Now for some athletes, a split finger release makes sense where the ball comes off 2 at the same time, but in general, it kind of depends on your body biomechanics and how your kind of hands are made. So for me, my middle finger is directly in the center of my forearm, and it's much longer than my other fingers. So that's gonna be the last one that I'm trying to snap the basketball off towards the basket. But here's the big key on a single finger release, is when we snap our wrist, we want just the one finger to go down towards the ground and the other ones can stay up, something kind of more along the lines like this. Because a lot of us have learned, hey, you want to put your hand in the cookie jar, or you want to snap the gooseneck or whatever they call it. But what you'll notice is if you put all your fingers down, that's an incredible amount of tension in your wrist, and that's where we get kind of that hard no-touch shot, right? You'll notice that the best shooters in the world, they get that nice snap, so they get perfect rotation on the ball, and it's a really kind of a loose whip crack at the end of their jump shot. So think about whichever finger you're finishing with. What I would do is I'd hold my hand out and see which finger is more in line with your forearm. But whichever finger you're finishing with, you want to snap that off and just that finger finish towards the ground. The other key in single finger to release to think about is where it's positioned on the basketball. So as I'm going up into my shot, if my single finger or my middle finger is off to the side, it's gonna push the basketball off at a bad direction. I wanna rotate my whole arm so my single finger is underneath the basketball and in a straight line with the hoop. That way it snaps off nice and straight. The more straight it can be, the more accurate it's gonna be as well. So really think about, hey, we're snapping that finger down, and then we're keeping it straight in line towards the hoop on the way up, and you'll be golden. And a massive shooting tip that a lot of people have never heard before is what I call break the wrist. Basically meaning that you want to snap both your wrists at the same time. A lot of us get this idea from coaching that our guide hand has to only be a straight guide hand. And as it comes up, it's got to stay nice and straight, and then we've got to snap our one wrist for the finish, right? This is kind of like the textbook finish where you're keeping your guide hand nice and straight, and your follow-through hand nice and snappy. The problem is, body biomechanically, that means that your guide hand will drop off earlier on the shot. So think about this. To keep my wrist straight on my guide hand, I really can't raise this arm further than right about here, but I've still got this much space to snap, right? So it basically means that the ball gets to be unguided from here to here on my release, right? So I think about it like the difference between a pistol and a rifle, right? A rifle's much more accurate because the barrel's longer, because it can guide the bullet for a longer path. That way it flies straighter, right? And so basically, if I'm keeping my wrist straight on my guide hand like this, it's basically like I'm shooting with a pistol, right? Because the barrel ends, the bullet comes out, and it's right about there. Now, what a lot of players don't realize is by simply flexing their guide hand forward so that their thumb finishes towards the ceiling rather than behind them, by flexing their guide hand forward, they can actually keep it on the ball a lot longer. So as I come up, I can actually start to break this wrist off and break it off with my shooting wrist at the same time, like this. And what you'll notice is when you see a lot of the best shooters in the world, in slow motion, they actually get this wrist flex from their guide hand. So what I want you to do is try that out when you're shooting. You're breaking both wrists at the same time as you're going into your jump shot. If you can do that, it'll guide the ball longer, and the longer it's guided, the more accurate it's gonna be. Now, the one big tip you wanna make sure you're not doing is rotating with the thumb to push it. So a lot of coaches think that their players are pushing their thumb when they're flexing, when they're actually not, but sometimes they actually do. So when you do shoot, you wanna make sure that the thumb rotates towards the ceiling and not out towards the opposite side, right? If I'm going this way and I'm rotating towards the opposite wrist, that means that I'm probably pushing it, and that could take it off course. So think about break the wrist, thumb to the ceiling, you'll be in a good spot. All right, if you want to shoot like a pro, you got to train like a pro. So click the top link in the description down below and get instant access to the Pro Shooting Pack brought to you by our guys at Pro Class. Now you can work out with some of the best shooters in the world, guys like Chris Paul, Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, just to name a few, to ensure that you're getting your jumper on point. And also, if you're new to ShotMechanics, hit that subscribe button, ding the bell notification, because we're bringing the best videos on the internet to help you get better that you're not going to want to miss. Again, I'm Coach Colin Castella, and until next time, splash on. Buckets! Aye!